What if power never disappeared, just evolved? Not into something gentler, not into something fairer, but into something harder to see. It stopped wearing crowns and started wearing suits. It stopped swinging swords and started signing checks. From the war room to the boardroom, from medieval courts to modern cabinets, power remains the same primal beast. It just learned to smile. Today, it's branded as leadership, strategy, vision. But beneath those buzzwords, the same blood-soaked truths remain. Who rises? Who falls? Who speaks softly and carries a hidden knife? Power never died, it just adapted. And no one understood that transformation better than a man who lived 5 centuries ago, Machiavelli. He was not born a conqueror, not a king, not a soldier. He was a civil servant, a thinker, a man exiled by his own government. But in his humiliation, he became something far more dangerous, an observer. Florence, late 1400s, a city caught between beauty and brutality. It gave the world the Renaissance, yes, but also blood feuds, conspiracies, executions, under moonlight, and Machiavelli. He watched. As secretary to the Second Chancery of Florence, he was sent to deal with kings, popes, and generals. He witnessed the delicate dance of diplomacy, the nods, the lies, the sudden betrayals. And then, in 1512, the tides turned. The Medici family returned to power. Machiavelli was arrested, imprisoned, and tortured. He never ruled a nation, but he'd watched those who did. And what he wrote next would haunt history for centuries. The Prince. Machiavelli watched Borgia with awe. Here was a man who understood that appearances were everything. A man who smiled while planning betrayal. A man who understood that mercy is expansive and often fatal. Then move forward 3 centuries. Stalin, a man who turned paranoia into policy. A leader who read Machiavelli not as a warning, but as a manual. Under Stalin, power became invisible and omnipresent. Friends vanished. Enemies confessed to crimes they didn't commit. Loyalty wasn't rewarded. Fear was. He controlled perception with propaganda, rewrote truth with edits, used terror as a glue to hold an empire together. And yet, too many. He was the father of a nation, a savior, a myth. Machiavelli would have recognized him immediately, because Stalin mastered the game of symbols, just as today's power players do. Not with purges, but with press releases. Not with exile, but with character assassination. Look at today's political stage, or the Fortune 500. What do you really see? Is it leadership or theater? So many speak of transparency, yet operate in shadows. They use empathy as a tool, morality as a brand. They charm the crowd while maneuvering behind the scenes. They know that power is not seized with violence anymore, it's seized with narrative. The game has changed, but the rules have not. And if you still think this is all about history, ask yourself, how many people around you hold power simply because they know how to appear harmless? How many decisions are made not in public, but in silence? How many times have you seen virtue used as a disguise? The most dangerous leaders are rarely loud. They don't need to scream. They don't need to threaten. They just wait. They build. And when the time comes, they strike. That is the Machiavellian ideal. Not chaos, not madness, but controlled chaos. Calculated moves, the art of seeming while scheming. And it's not just in politics, it's in business, in media, in relationships. Every arena where perception matters. Machiavelli is whispering in the background. Power, to him, wasn't evil. It was natural, unavoidable. a force that flows to the cunning, not the kind. And if that unsettles you, good. It should. They say history is written by the victors. Machiavelli would argue no. It's written by those who understand the script of power and play their part with precision. Because in every generation, there are those who lead from the front and those who lead from the shadows, those who give speeches and those who give orders behind closed doors. And Machiavelli didn't just watch them. He documented them. He peeled back their public faces to expose the architecture behind the throne. He saw how leaders were not born, but made, not in the light, but in the dark, through decisions most would never dare make. He understood the bitter paradox. To hold power, you must often do things that would strip you of the moral right to hold it. And so, Machiavelli became something even more dangerous than a ruler. He became an architect of rulers. In The Prince, he didn't tell leaders to be cruel. He told them to be strategic. Don't be cruel without reason. But when cruelty is necessary, be swift, surgical, and final. It's not about bloodlust, it's about control. He advised rulers to appear religious even if they weren't, to speak of virtue even when plotting vice, because perception, not truth, holds power. That's the core of Machiavelli's brilliance. He separates appearance from intention. He teaches that you do not need to be good, you only need to seem good. And in that cold calculation, he did something no philosopher had done before. He stripped away the ideal and exposed the game. It was the birth of political realism, a worldview that says, forget how things should be. Let's talk about how things are. And that realism has infected modern society in ways even Machiavelli might not have imagined. Today, we live in a world of curated personas. Instagram, LinkedIn, press interviews, branding, spin. Every CEO knows they must appear compassionate, even if layoffs loom. Every politician knows how to cry on cue, even if they wrote the bill that caused the crisis. This is not new. This is And before you think this only applies to politics or Fortune 500s, think again. Machiavelli's rules apply to any system where power exists, in offices, in families, in communities, anywhere people jockey for influence, status, or control. Consider the phrase, fake it till you make it. That's Machiavelli, modernized. Project strength, even when you feel weak. Appear confident, even when you doubt. Play the part until you become the part. Because power isn't just about what you do, it's about what they think you are. And he warned, if you try to rule as a saint in a world of wolves, you will be devoured. So what do the wolves do today? They don't bark, they smile, they don't bite, they brand. The modern Machiavellian doesn't need a crown, they need a following, a carefully curated image, a strategy that tells people what they want to hear while pursuing what they need to take. And that leads us to the great paradox of our time. We say we want honesty in leaders, but we reward performance. We say we value authenticity, but we follow those who manipulate it best. Because, let's face it, the most effective leaders aren't always the most ethical. They're the ones who understand timing, optics, leverage, the ones who know when to speak and when to disappear, the ones who show weakness only when it wins sympathy, strength only when it wins loyalty, and silence only when it creates fear. And when we look at them, when we vote for them, hire them, promote them, we're not always choosing the good. We're choosing the effective. That's the dirty truth Machiavelli dared to say out loud. He understood the gap between what we preach and what we practice. He knew that society itself was built on illusions, that even the most democratic systems require someone behind the curtain pulling the strings. So he gave us the blueprint, and whether we realize it or not, we're still using it. You see it in media. In a world driven by attention, perception is everything. And those who can control perception control the game. They know that people rarely check facts. They feel, then believe. And once they believe, they'll defend it to the grave. That's why modern power doesn't need swords. It needs symbols. Machiavelli would say, give them something to fear, something to hope for, and something to blame. And they'll never notice who's actually in charge. Even now, his fingerprints are everywhere. In campaign ads designed to stir emotion, in PR tactics that bury the truth beneath distraction, in influencers who craft identities as carefully as emperors once crafted myths, power hasn't disappeared. It's just evolved into its most seductive form yet. And if you want to survive in this world, maybe even lead in it, to need to see through the performance, not to become cruel, but to become clear-eyed, to understand how the world actually works, not how you wish it worked. Because the people at the top, they're not playing the same game. They're playing Machiavelli's. So what does Machiavellian power actually look like today? It looks like the CEO who posts about mental health while quietly cutting health benefits. It looks like a smiling candidate shaking hands with children after voting against their school funding. Machiavellian power is not brute force. It's not overt control. Because the moment someone appears to have power, people behave as if they do on. In doing so, they grant them more. It's a self-fulfilling illusion. And Machiavelli was the first to write it down. He knew that power flows not from virtue, but from strategy. Not from honesty, but from optics. Number 1. Appear moral. Act strategically. To Machiavelli, it was foolish to always be good, but it was suicidal to be seen as evil. So he urged rulers to appear generous, religious, just even if they weren't, because people don't follow the truth, they follow the image. A modern leader can lie, cheat, manipulate, so long as they seem relatable, articulate, and occasionally remorseful. Tears in an interview, a candid photo with a pet, all part of the same playbook. It's not new. It's Renaissance theater, dressed in digital clothes. Number 2. Divide and distract. Machiavelli advised rulers to keep factions fighting, enemies guessing, allies dependent. Never let unity build against you. Today, we see this tactic weaponized at scale. Political polarization isn't just a byproduct, it's a strategy. Create enough chaos, and no one notices who's pulling the strings. Watch how controversies get planted before major scandals. Notice how culture wars dominate headlines, while deeper economic shifts happen quietly in the background. This is not incompetence, it's controlled chaos. It keeps people reactive. Number 3. Control perception through symbols. Machiavelli saw the power of symbols centuries before mass media. A flag, a slogan, a uniform. Today, a hashtag, a logo, a campaign font. He knew that people need to believe in something larger than themselves, and the leader who provides that belief becomes untouchable. Look at how movements form, because fear, once internalized, governs behavior without enforcement. Today, you don't need exile or execution, just one scandal, one leak, one well-timed rumor, and a career vanishes. That's the new guillotine, reputation. Machiavelli would answer, it doesn't matter. What matters is, does it work? Because while most people navigate the world based on principles, values, ideals. The Machiavellian navigates based on outcomes, not what's right, what works. And that's where the discomfort lies, because deep down, many of us suspect he's right, that virtue alone can't win elections, that morality without force is powerless, that truth without strategy is ignored. And so we enter the moral gray zone Machiavelli lived in, where we ask, can you be good and still be powerful? Or does power demand something else, something colder? The truth is, most of us don't want to think about power this way. We want to believe it's earned through kindness, intelligence, merit. But the world Machiavelli describes is not ideal. It's human, flawed, self-interested, driven by fear, ambition, insecurity. And so his advice is not for saints, it's for survivors. He never claimed to invent power. He only revealed its anatomy. And centuries later, the blueprint holds. It holds in politics, in boardrooms, in media empires, in personal relationships, where silence is used as control, affection as leverage. Even our most intimate connections are not immune to power dynamics. Why do some people obsess over being liked? Why do others play hard to get? Why does silence sometimes speak louder than words? These aren't just quirks of human behavior. They're strategies often subconscious for gaining or maintaining power. And when you begin to see the world through this lens, things start to make sense. Not in a cynical way, but in a clear way. You realize that power is not evil, it's just real. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't reward the nicest. It rewards the smartest players, the ones who learn the game, even if they hate it. And that's why Machiavelli remains relevant. Not because he glamorized manipulation, but because he understood it. He didn't ask us to abandon ethics. He asked us to stop confusing ethics with effectiveness. Because the truth is, the world doesn't always punish the wicked. It often promotes them, so long as they're competent. And until we recognize that, we remain pawns in a game we don't know we're playing. So here we are in a world Machiavelli predicted, not in name, but in nature, not with swords and castles, but with data, media, and the illusion of choice. He would look at modern democracies and smile not because he'd see freedom, but because he'd see control disguised as consent. Because even now, most people don't choose their leaders. They choose between carefully packaged options, between personalities sculpted by teams of image makers, between speeches optimized by focus groups and algorithms. Machiavelli never lived to see television, never imagined social media. But he knew the most powerful force in politics is not truth, it's belief. Belief, once manipulated, can justify anything. Wars, injustice, corruption. That's why Machiavelli was obsessed with appearances. He knew that if people believe you're just, then you are. If they believe you're a savior, then it doesn't matter what you've done behind the scenes. The modern world is flooded with these illusions. We follow leaders not because they are competent, but because they've mastered the performance of leadership. And when that performance falters, we don't question the system. We replace the actor, but the script remains the same. This is the hidden architecture Machiavelli revealed. It's not that people are incapable of truth. It's that most people don't want it, especially when it's inconvenient, ugly, or threatens their worldview. And so power adapts. It adapts by becoming invisible, subtle, palatable. It doesn't force itself upon you. It seduces you through entertainment, through narrative, through carefully chosen heroes and villains. Machiavelli would ask you, who's writing the script you believe in? Who benefits from the outrage you feel? Whose story are you really living inside? Because real power isn't loud, it's quiet. It doesn't beg for your attention, it quietly shapes it. It's not the dictator shouting from the balcony. It's the algorithm deciding what you see. The boardroom where policy is crafted before the press conference ever begins. The think tank that drafts tomorrow's outrage before today's news has even cooled. That's where Machiavelli would live today, not in the public arena but behind it, among the strategists, the brand architects, the perception managers. He would be the ghost in the boardroom, the voice no one names but everyone obeys. And that leads us to a chilling question. If Machiavellian tactics are so widespread, then what does it really mean to be ethical in a Machiavellian world? Is virtue even possible when the system rewards the illusion of it more than the substance? Can you be both good and effective? Or does the pursuit of power inevitably corrupt? This is where Machiavelli offers no comfort. He doesn't give you the answer, he only gives you the mirror. And in that mirror, many flinch, because it shows that even the most moral among us are still players in the game. Not because you're evil, but because you're human. Because survival, influence, and reputation are baked into our psychology. Machiavelli didn't invent this, he exposed it. And that's what makes him dangerous, not his cruelty, but his clarity. He tells us, without apology, this is how power works. Now you decide, will you play the game, or be played by it? And the truth is, most people don't decide. They drift, they react. They believe in the myths because it's easier than facing the mechanics behind them. But once you've seen how the machine works, you can't unsee it. You start to recognize the tactics, the moral outrage used to distract from policy failure, the public apologies that are really strategic calculations, the way charisma is weaponized, not for connection, but for control. And once you recognize it in others, you begin to recognize it in yourself. How often do we use kindness to manipulate? How often do we dress up ambition in the language of purpose? The line between authenticity and performance blurs, not just in politics, but in everyday life. And Machiavelli would argue, that line has always been blurred. We just like to pretend it isn't. So what now? Do we embrace manipulation? Do we abandon morality altogether? No, that's not what Machiavelli wanted. He didn't ask us to become tyrants. He asked us to stop being naive, to understand that power, like fire, is dangerous but necessary. That morality without strategy is toothless, and strategy without morality is monstrous. The balance is hard, but it's real. And the people who walk that edge, who can act with both clarity and conscience, those are the ones who change history, not by accident, not by purity alone, but by playing the game better and more ethically than anyone else. That is the art of power. The Prince was never written as a moral guide. It was a mirror. One held up to those who aspired to rule not with honor, but with results. And in this mirror, Machiavelli dared to reflect something no one wanted to admit, that morality and power were rarely allies. But in his Discourses on Livy, written after The Prince, the image changes. Here, Machiavelli seems to praise republics, civic virtue, and the chaos of citizen participation. If The Prince was a scalpel for tyranny, the Discourses was a blueprint for collective strength. Two faces of one mind, that is Machiavelli. He was not a man obsessed with cruelty. He was obsessed with what worked. And what worked, whether in the hands of a prince or the arms of a republic, was force guided by foresight, deception guarded by charm, and ambition cloaked in patriotism. And when we look out at the modern world, we see his fingerprints everywhere. In the glossy halls of Silicon Valley, where CEOs wear hoodies instead of crowns, you find a different kind of prince. They speak of transparency and empathy, but their strategies Machiavellian. They charm the masses while acquiring data. They preach disruption while consolidating monopolies. And what of politics? Look closer. The pageantry of campaign trails, the perfectly timed scandals, the tearful speeches, the enemy creation, the curated fall guys, the quiet leaks, the manufactured outrage, all of it stage managed in the spirit of a prince who understood that what people believe is more important than what is. We live in a world where attention is power, and Machiavelli would tell you control the narrative, and you control reality. It is here we meet the archetypes of modern power. Let's begin with Cesare Borgia, the prototype that Machiavelli admired, not for his kindness, but for his calculated efficiency. Borgia was no fool. He inherited chaos, and he used terror not for its own sake, but to stabilize. He knew when to strike and when to smile. When a minister became hated for his brutality, Cesare had him executed publicly, not to appease the people, but to show them he was in control of the cruelty, not consumed by it. Machiavelli watched it all, admired it, not because he loved violence, but because Borgia's violence had purpose. Centuries later, we see a darker echo of that legacy. Joseph Stalin. Fear was his currency, paranoia his fortress, surveillance his kingdom. Where Borgia wielded violence with flair, Stalin industrialized it. He erased history in real time, rewrote loyalties by morning, and buried betrayal under numbers so high they lost their sting. Yet he too, in the twisted logic of power, survived. He consolidated. He shaped a nation through fear and through symbols, the mustache, the coat, the statues, the silences. Would Machiavelli have approved? Perhaps not morally, but strategically, he might have whispered. He understood the game. But the modern world plays differently. Subtler, colder, cleaner. Look at the modern prince, the tech mogul with soft eyes and $1 billion smile. He doesn't need a guillotine. He has algorithms. He doesn't raise armies. He raises valuations. He knows that appearing authentic is now the greatest mask of all. He speaks of justice and inclusivity while manipulating emotions with design, psychology, and neuromarketing. His benevolence is optimized for engagement. His vision carefully curated for quarterly growth. Machiavelli would recognize this. He would not ask if such leaders were good. He would ask, are they effective? Do they maintain control? Do they protect their rule through perception, not just policy? And it is this perception that remains Machiavelli's most dangerous gift. Control how people see you, manipulate their fear, offer hope, then retract it, promise safety, but deliver it only if loyalty remains. This is not just tyranny, this is theater, the politics of illusion. And in that theater, the tactics of Machiavelli remain timeless. Divide and distract, appear moral, but act strategically. Reveal weakness only when it will disarm suspicion. And above all, never let them know who truly holds the strings. Because, in truth, power is not taken. It is given by those who believe the one in charge deserves it. And if you can convince them of that, you never have to take it back. He was never crowned, yet his influence echoes louder than kings. Machiavelli wasn't merely a theorist, he was a mirror to the world's most dangerous men. A man who wrote not to invent evil, but to dissect it, to make power visible, palpable, controllable, not through delusion, but through description. So what does Machiavellian power look like today? You might not see a crown, you might not even see blood, but you will see control. A CEO who smiles while laying off thousands, yet walks out to thunderous applause from shareholders. A tech billionaire who preaches freedom while monopolizing the very platforms we speak on. A politician who calls for unity while his campaign team quietly fans division. These are not contradictions. These are tactics. They know the modern game. And Machiavelli, centuries ago, predicted the rulebook. Let's break it down. Rule 1. Appear moral. Act strategic. In The Prince, Machiavelli warns that to survive in power, a leader must master the art of appearances. Not to be good, but to appear good. The great majority of mankind are satisfied with appearances, as though they were realities. The modern elite doesn't need to be ethical, they need to look ethical. They don't need to be selfless, just photogenic. This is why politicians cry on cue. Why tech moguls wear hoodies. Why global power brokers sit on TED stages preaching compassion. Power now wears a smile. It mimics empathy. It rebrands ruthlessness as vision. And because the masses crave authenticity, they offer performance. Machiavelli saw this coming. He would tell you, the image is more real than the man, and the image can be managed. Rule 2. Divide and distract. Machiavelli understood that internal conflict can be a tool, not a flaw. He didn't believe in chaos for its own sake. He believed in controlled conflict. A ruler, he said, should foster division among his people, not to destroy them, but to distract them. Why? Because a divided people rarely unite against their ruler. Today, this tactic isn't medieval, it's algorithmic. Look at your news feed. Tribalism sells. Identity warfare escalates. Left versus right. Rich versus poor. Urban versus rural. The flames are fanned by accident, but by design. Social media is the new Colosseum. Rage is entertainment. Conflict keeps you scrolling. Outrage keeps you engaged. Meanwhile, those in power make decisions unnoticed. While the public fights over tweets, policies are written in boardrooms. While we cancel each other, monopolies grow stronger. Division is the ultimate smoke bomb. And as Machiavelli would nod with grim approval, it is not hate that destroys rulers, it is unity. Rule 3. Control perception through symbols. In The Prince, Machiavelli emphasizes spectacle. Power must be seen to be believed. It must dress in ceremony, wrap itself in myth, speak through symbols. Modern power does this better than ever. Presidents stand before flags. Billionaires launch rockets. Leaders tweet in emoji-laden prose. Brands borrow ancient myths, Nike from Greek goddesses, Amazon with the arrow that smiles. Even tech companies now use storytelling, not specs, to sell influence. Elon Musk isn't just a CEO, he's a meme lord visionary. Apple isn't just hardware, it's identity. Symbols shape allegiance. They simplify complexity. They hypnotize. The crown may be gone, but the logo remains. The military uniform, the luxury watch, the charitable foundation. These are not accessories. They are armors, each carefully chosen, each hiding something beneath. And here's the cruel paradox. The more authentic power pretends to be, the more fake it becomes. Yet the more fake it is, the more we want to believe it's real. Because raw power, like the sun, burns when looked at directly. So we look at reflections, Instagram captions, campaign slogans, graduation speeches, all designed to hide the calculus underneath. We ask, who's real? But Machiavelli would ask, who controls what you think is real? That's the final tactic, the deepest, to not just control people, but to control their perception of truth. That is power at its peak. And yet Machiavelli never told you what to do with that truth. He merely placed the mirror in front of your face. What you see and how you act on it, that's your burden, the unsettling part. Power isn't lurking in the shadows anymore. It's smiling in selfies. It's raising venture capital. It's speaking fluent empathy while planning domination behind closed doors. So, in a world obsessed with being real, is the person faking it actually winning in your workplace, in your relationships, in your country? Are those who play the part of goodness the most dangerous, and those who dare to question them the ones labeled mad? Machiavelli never asked you to become a monster. He only asked you to understand the theater. Because in the theater of power, those who don't understand the script become the props.